Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to my first action figure video. Kind of like a review today, but today I want to do a comparison between the newest Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures and the oldest 1988 Playmates figures. And I have the full set almost of both, and I will explain that a little bit later. But today I want to do a comparison between the differences and the similarities between the old and the new, and just see exactly what has changed over the past 20 years now, I think. So let's just get straight into that. Alright, so now when it comes to our favorite Heroes in a Half Shell, I tend to think I know a lot about them. I have been a big fan of them ever since I was a little kid. I used to collect the toys, and I'd watch the television shows, and I even dressed up as one a little while back. But today I would like to just see what is different between these two. Now, disclaimer, I do not own the original 1988 Playmates version of Leonardo. I own the new one. I only have the first three. The rest of them I cannot find out where Leo is. I have looked in antique shops for him, comic shops. I can't find him. I've looked on eBay, and the only one I found is like a loose figure, is just like without the belt, and he's broken. All of these are without the belts, and that's not really something I'm worried about, but he had a broken arm and yada yada yada. So I will put up a picture of him for comparison's sake, and I have a picture that I'm going to use to compare him with, but right now I do not have any way of comparing him to the new Leo. But I can still compare the other ones, and we will go from there. So let's give a little backstory on our favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles here. They were created in the year 1984 by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird in their apartment, in their apartment room or their house, where they started their own comic company known as Mirage Studios, and they were doodling on their coffee table and came up with the idea for a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. And they were kind of just going with the rhythm of that, and they thought, hey, that'd be pretty cool. So they came up with enough money to print 3,000 issues of the first issue of the original Turtles book. And in 1984, they published their comic book and sold 500,000 copies, I think, around 1 million, and made a lot of money from it. And it is now one of the most popular independent comics and popular things in general, and has been loved by everybody ever since. So here is Mikey from his Playmates, and a couple years after the comic, at approximately 4 years, the company Playmates took up the idea to start moving to the American market and start trying to compete with the bigger toy companies, Hasbro, Tonka, all those big ones. And they partnered with Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird to create the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toys. And those were a huge hit with kids and parents and everybody back in the 80s. And they were selling off the shelves, just practically flying off of them. Even though turtles don't fly, I think they waddle more than anything. But yeah, so they were fairly popular, and they have been ever since being revamped and rebooted. And today, the latest iteration that we have of the Turtles is the new hit movie, or not new, I guess it came out last year, Mutant Mayhem, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. And it was done in a very fun way. It was a very epic movie, but still being fun enough for kids. And they have made new toys from it, and they are both made by Playmates. So Playmates has been manufacturing Turtles toys for a while, ever since the originals. They've done the 2012 Nick ones. They've done that weird show from 2007 that I don't think many people watched. They've done Rise of the TMNT. They've done everything. So they are pretty experienced when it comes to TMNT toys. But today I wanted to see, because when looking at these toys, when I first got the new ones, I really was realizing a lot of similarities between the two. And I was wondering if they were trying to go back to their old roots of turtle toys. And I'm sure you're already noticing some similarities, but let's just start with the most obvious ones, being Michelangelo. So obviously, apart from his turtle counterpart, his brother counterparts, he has the darkest green out of all of them, unless you count Donnie's brownish olive green as a green, but he has the darkest true green color out of all of them. And he just seems to be very, like, he seems like the most colorful of all the turtles. That's probably because he has the most colorful personality out of all of them. But I just realized that when looking at these, because if you look at these, they have more of a brighter lime green, but Mikey has a lot darker of a green, and it's a lot more similar in tone to his original 1988 Playmates version, which I just thought was really interesting that they kind of, because even with the Nickelodeon designs and the Rise of the TMNT, those had a lot of the like Nike was fairly bright in the 2012 ones, and then those Rise of the TMNT figures, they were all kind of the same colors. So when you get this in your hand, you're kind of just realize they're very similar in shade, and I just thought that was interesting when opening this figure up. Obviously, the biggest difference is that these ones have the classic white eyes that you would have seen in the comics, which is, you know, pretty common fare for what you'd see in comic books back then. Any character with a mask was bound to have white eyes. You'd have Spider-Man, Batman, they'd always have whited out eyes. But with these ones, you just get the basic painted on pupils. It's kind of what you saw more in that new movie. And as you can see here, let's compare it to Michelangelo, to whatever his name is, Raphael here. He's got more, it's still like an angry face, but you can tell it's kind of a smirk on Mikey, while he's got much more of an angry face. So the rest of them have more angrier facial designs in their originals, but Mikey was more smiling. And as you can see here, he's got the biggest grin. A lot of them in the new ones are grinning, but he's got the most prominent of a grin, which I think is just another similarity that I thought was fun. And the belts are very classic. If you collect these figures, the older figures, you'll probably know that these belts usually get lost. These belts can come off, so it looks like they were also trying to go back to that. But as you can see, a big difference is their shell colors. So this one has a more realistic brown shell with all of that turtle texturing, while this one was more cartoony, dark green. And there's a lot less, like veins. As you can see on these older figures, you got a lot of veiny sculpting on there, while these you get more skinnier, so you have less veins. And that's another thing I'm noticing, was that the older turtles weren't really teenagers, like especially in those movie versions. They kind of acted like teenagers, but they didn't really look the part. They were really muscular and really large compared to everybody else that you would see in the show. So when this new movie came out, I saw them and I was like, yeah, that looks like a teenager, because they're called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, not oversized grown men turtles. And that's how they acted. They even acted like modern day teenagers in that movie, which I thought was really cool. So as you can see, the differences are very similar. Obviously the scale isn't something that's really different. I mean, all the turtles basically had the same body. They just gave them different head sculpts, but that's just really it's weirdly similar to their older figures. And obviously with these you get just like 5 points of maybe 7 points, I think, because I don't know if that counts as an articulation, that little wrist cut there. But you didn't get a lot of articulation. It was kind of just like the He-Man articulation there, so you kind of just had the, you can move the legs around a bit. But with these you obviously get a lot more. You get ball jointed shoulders, you get nice ball jointed forearms and like twistable wrists. Even the feet have a twist to them, and you can get them into some crouchier poses. And I like this little rubbery piece here. It's a little bit more rubbery, so when you try to bend it, it will actually allow you to articulate it upward without it breaking that part. But you can get them into some more combat-y poses than you could with just the basic articulation with these. Let's move on to probably the one who's gotten the worst of the toys. And that's in my opinion, Raphael. I mean, this just feels like Raphael just kind of got Leo's color and body and then just got painted red. I mean, he doesn't really get the best when it comes to toys, but that kind of changed a little bit here with the newest Playmates edition from the Mutant Mayhem movie. So obviously, comparing it to Mikey, who's I think the skinniest of all the turtles, he's a lot bigger, like in scale and then in size, just like looking at the side of him. So he's a lot bigger than his other brothers here, but he still looks like and acts like a teenager in that movie, so it makes sense. But A little bit different here. He's got like a pouch or something, while the other ones don't really have that. But comparing him, there's not a lot to compare. Obviously, he's got that full head mask, while this one just has the eyelet mask. But you still get certain like things that just look so similar to the old ones, that are acting so similar. Because if you look at the old Leonardo, which I'll put a picture, he has a very similar color scheme to this, but it's just slightly changed on the green to where it looks darker on Leonardo than it does on Raph. And that's the same here. It's a very slight change between those two colors, and it looks almost like the same color, but it's slightly changed, so this one's lighter and this one's darker. And it just seems like I don't think that's a coincidence that they've done it twice over the course of 20 years now. And it just seems like way too much of a coincidence for that to be a coincidence. But I don't know. He's definitely got that same mouth sculpt. As you can see, kind of like these two open parts of his mouth are a lot more bubbly and wide, and it gets thinner towards the snout type thing here. It's the same here on that mouth sculpt. So, but yeah, it's again very similar figures. Now let's move on to, we'll do Leo last. We'll do Donnie here. So Donnie has had the most drastic changes, I think, out of all of the turtles we've seen so far. I mean, you could just taking a look at him, you can tell. I mean, he comes with headphones and glasses and a fanny pack and just all this stuff. And while the original one just, he had a stick, but it's not exactly similar, but I don't know if you can tell. Again, another color coincidence I'm seeing. But as you can see, he's drastically different from the rest of his brothers. It's not like these two are always different, but this is like, at least these two look green, but this one's like a brown. Like, it's sort of green, but it's brown. Like, that's a brown turtle. So this one is green, but it's a very yellowy olive green compared to the rest of the turtles, who have like really nice green colors that you can tell is green. This one's almost yellow. It's almost a different color, but you can tell it's still green. And that's what's happening here with this old Donnie. It's almost brown, but you can tell it's sort of olivey green. And I don't think that's a coincidence. They're doing it on purpose. I think they have to be, because it's almost another color. It's almost yellow, but it's still green enough to where you can tell it's green. And I just think that's really cool. And obviously he's a lot smaller than the rest of them. He also has this stick, which, it's a stick. And I'm really sad that I didn't get the accessories for the old turtles, because I would have had a lot of fun putting their weapons on their backs and stuff. But I just don't think that can be a coincidence there. And obviously here we don't have the same kind of mouth sculpt. I mean, it kind of is, but that matches more up with Mikey, where one part of his mouth is open and then the other one is not. But but I just think they're so drastically different from each other, but have that similarity that just makes me think that they're doing that on purpose. And even like with some of the older figures, you see like the white wrappings. Here you'll see the wrappings again, but they're actually the same color as their masks, which is what they did with the old ones. And look, they even have them in the same places, on their shoulders and on their wrists, in the exact same areas. With some of the newer figures you'd see, like those Rise of the TMNT ones, or the 2012 Nick ones, or the movie figures, and so on and so forth, they would mostly have that white wrapping you'd see in like those IDW comics. And with here, they're going with a very classic design. And that movie was very classic looking, as if it was an old school comic book, but I don't think it was like as obvious as it was here. And again, we got that flexible little piece at the bottom to allow for more articulation at the legs. But I just really thought that was a weird thing. And then we have Leo, which he's the last one. I'm going to put up a picture right here. So with Leo, let me look up a picture of him. I don't really have a picture yet. Hold on. So with the original Leonardo, he has like the most green, because the brightest green colors in that original line were Leo and Raph. And he had like the most saturated of them. Like Raphael's was very muted, a little bit more to make him look lighter. And then you'd have, Donnie's being brown almost, and then Mikey's being really dark. He had just like the most basic green you would find. And he came with that, and this is kind of the same here. Like, you'll have Raph, but Raph's is a lot lighter than his is. It's a lot more muted to me. And then this one's almost yellow, and then this one's too dark. So this one has like the most green of it. And I think that's just a weird coincidence. I don't think it can be like that, honestly. I mean, there's no way it's a coincidence. And then you also have another similarity is I think Donnie and Leo were the only two to have two straps going over, because I think Donnie had to have another strap going on for his thing. So for Leo here, he has two straps, and on the original Leonardo figure, he also had two straps. So I think that was just interesting, and it's just a weird comparison to make, but I don't know why I'm not doing it with any other figure. It's just these ones, because these ones just seem so similar, and even though they're the newest, they're like almost pretending to be the newest ones. So, you know, it's just my thoughts on it, but obviously it's just like they're very different drastically, but they have so many similarities. It seems like Playmates trying to go back to their older roots of making more classic looking figures, and I think they had the chance to do that, because with the new movie they had more classic designs to them, more reminiscent of something you'd see in the old comics. So I think they took their chance to do that. And I could definitely tell that with the villains, even with stuff like Wingnut and Bebop and Rocksteady, they had very classic designs, unlike something you'd see in maybe those weird live-action movies from the 2016 stuff, or, you know, just 2012 stuff, where they kind of changed it a lot, but you could still tell what the character was. But, you know, I just thought it was interesting that they kind of had that similar feel to them. And another big thing, I was almost about to close out the video without mentioning this, they made the weapons almost fit perfectly in the old Turtles' hands. They fit perfectly. Like, all the weapons, I tried them all out. They all fit in there really well. So here's Raph. If I take out the new Raph's size, they will fit in the old one's hands like almost perfectly, like it was made for it. That could just be a big coincidence, but it seems like they're trying to make all the toys compatible. But like, look at how well, like, his fingers close perfectly around that. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being crazy, but that's just my thoughts on the comparison. But now I want to see how they compare to each other, like, paint-wise, sculpt-wise, and figure out which one is best, new or old. So, let's do that. Alright, so I'm just doing this comparison with Mikey, because I just like Mikey the best. I like his personality the best, and he has the nicest of the colors, I think, so I'm just going to do that. So let's start off with the first Mikey that we've ever gotten, and it was this one. So, sculpt-wise, honestly, it's not bad. It definitely seems like they were trying to go Masters of the Universe with it, with their squatty poses and, you know, just what they were doing with the sculpting. The big blocky musculature just seems a lot more like Masters of the Universe. But it's not a bad figure. Obviously, it's made for children, but like, collectors still collect this stuff, and it just seems like, you know, it just is a very collectible thing. And like, even from the sculpting they got down on the fingers, all these little details, everything from like the ankles and stuff, and the wrists, and then all like that sinewy musculature you'll see, it just seems to work fairly well. And even like the scars that they etched in there look really nice. So, but again, it's really awkward trying to pose these guys. I keep having trouble trying to get them in position for this video, because they keep like these leg joints are just really weird. Like, oh, look at that. I might have almost broke it there, but like, you get these weird joints, and then their feet are all positioned, like one is down flat, but then this one's all like arched, and then you have to like stand him on his toes, and he has to like, I mean, like, okay, well, I say that, and then I immediately stand him up perfectly. But they're hard to get into that position, especially with the limited of that, and then like not being able to move any other part of them. It just seems a little like aggravating, and unlike stuff that was coming out in the 80s at the time, like, say this Secret Wars Iron Man, I mean, like, they basically had the same stance for all the figures. You could still get them into some action-y poses, but, like, you know, they were just flat, and then you could just stand them, and that was basically it. Wow, I'm complaining about not being able to stand up the Playmates figures, and then I can't stand up this Secret Wars Iron Man. Oh, goodness. But I'm just saying, like, the way they designed that seems a little weird, and then this weird, like, I guess that's fine to help them hold the weapons better, but, like, why would you have it so that you can just do that with their hands? It does kind of look like they're doing some ninja-y poses with that, like some karate chop stuff, but, like, since they're basically only supposed to be put in this position for their weapons, there's not much else you can do with that unless you're swapping their weapons around. And while I love these figures, and they're just so fun to hold and play with, they're just frustrating sometimes, and I can understand as a child in the 80s being frustrated that my turtles wouldn't stand up. And this is something I don't like, these tiny little, like, you'll look on these new figures, they have these really big, cool, flexible, flowing bandanas, and then these ones just got these little, like, dinky little ties on there. And I think they could have put some paint wash, maybe in the teeth, just to give it a little bit more, but obviously it was made for kids, and they didn't really have a lot of money to make these, so I guess it makes sense. But I think they could have worked a little bit longer on the articulation and stuff. But let's move on to comparing it to the newest of them. Now, this is okay. I mean, I like these figures, but there's definitely some problems that persist. Like, first of all, this texturing on them is a little weird. It looks almost carved like it was in the movie, because it's a little bit more jagged like it was, but then they put this weird, like, bumpy texture on it that you can kind of see in the light, and that just, like, kind of throws off the whole look. Now, with the paint apps, I really like the ones they did on the eyes and teeth. The black outlines make it look like how it was in the movie, which looked like a very painterly, ink-looking classic comic movie. But they only did it on the face and nowhere else. Like, you could have done it in the shell, maybe. And that, because when I look at those newer NECA figures where they, like, draw all of those cool lines on, they could have put the extra time to put some extra black lines on these muscles, maybe on the back of the shells, inside of these wrappings, and it would have made it look a lot more like the movie. And while they got, like, the shapes of them right, just texture-wise, it doesn't work at all, really. And these things could probably use, like, another paint wash. There's all these little nicks and scratches that you won't really see at first glance because there's nothing there to, like, emphasize that those are there. Another thing is these take-offable belts. I mean, that's something that you could do with the old Playmates figures, just take off the belts. Obviously, I'm keeping mine on. I want to make sure these ones keep their belts, so if some dud like me in the future wants to collect Turtles figures and wants to have a full set of new ones, well, to them it'll be old in the future, but they're going to want ones with the belt and, you know, not, for some reason, not have the belt whatsoever. But articulation-wise, they're fine. They don't need a lot of articulation because they're made for kids, and they're not supposed to be some articulated import figure for collectors. But, I mean, some of that articulation just, like, doesn't really work for me. Like, what are you going to use that for? And this leg articulation is okay, but something about it just, like, doesn't work. I mean, it's much better. It's come a long way since those old Playmates figures. But something about the legs is just weird to me. The arms are fine. The arms are totally good. Everywhere about the arms is fine. That it's not something I care about. It's just the legs, and it seems like another comparison thing we can make. It seems like Playmates can never get leg joints right, for me at least. But big change, big flowy bandanas, which I like a lot better than those older, you know, little stick ones. Obviously, you got the things on the back to hold their weapons, which is really fine. I think that's exactly the same as it was in the Mikey. Maybe the old Mikey figure had him on the front. I'm not sure, but color-wise, I think this orange is not as good as the original. Like, the original one is a lot more saturated, a lot more bright and dark. You can see it. This one just kind of seems a little bit more muted and bright and, like, pastel-y almost. So that's not something I really like. And his head is just, ugh. Like, I like all the other Turtles' heads, but this one just looks, like, really wide and goofy looking. He just looks like a big doofus, but I mean, I guess he is like the least serious of them all, but like I don't know why his head just looks wrong for some reason. But like his eyes are too far apart or something. But I still like it. It's fine. I like it a lot. I mean, colors are nice. It feels fun to play with. And if I was a kid in this day and age, I'd be happy to get this up as a birthday present or something. And weirdly enough, they're not much different in scale. I mean, I guess that's because these ones are squattier. If you unbent their legs, these ones would probably be a little bit taller. But even just standing still, they're almost same scale as the old ones. And another weird thing is if I just grab this random Kenner figure off my shelf here, they scale like underneath the Kenner figures, and I thought Kenner figures were small. Like comparing it to something like a McFarlane, those ones are like 7 inches. I did not realize that these things were this small. I don't know, maybe I was just underestimating it, but like Mikey here is underneath Batman, and this is like, this thing just fits in the palm of my hand. And like even it's like Mikey's like Raph here is just still struggling to catch up to Batman, which I think that's a little weird, but hey, you know, whatever works. But anyway, that's really all I have to say about these new and old figures. I still love both of them. There's nothing I truly hate about them apart from just like really small things, but like obviously these are classic, and if you're a Turtles fan and you want some cheap figures to clutter your shelf with, then these are a good thing too, and they've been going on sale at the Walmarts and Targets, so I'd go check these out. It's a little bit harder to find the villains for them apparently, but you know, whatever works. But anyway, thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you like and subscribe. It would help me make better videos in the future. If you like Turtles content, or if you like any kind of action figure stuff at all, please let me know down in the comments, and I will for sure do some more action figure stuff in the future. I also have another video that I posted of me customizing a Dollar Tree action figure, so if that's something you want to see, go check that out. But thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.